Good afternoon, Team Liquid.net. This is Sean Plott, aka Day9, bringing to you today Liquibition number 29, F91 vs. NonY. So right now, for those of you not familiar with the history of the Liquibition, F91 has currently been just absolutely destroying the foreign community. He smashed JF and Straylock recently in Liquibitions, as well as the infamous 5-2 against Idra. So right now, we're going to see him face against the Protoss superstar from America, NonY. And again, for those of you who haven't been surfing Team Liquid for the last 2 years, NonY has been going to South Korea to play with the Eastro Pro team. He's recently come back and has said that he's been quote-unquote lazy because he has been playing hundreds of games every day. But still, NonY is known for being a super solid player at his absolute top form. With that in mind, let's briefly discuss what's going to be happening on map number 1, Colloseum. So this map traditionally favors Protoss a little bit. I mean, in the professional matches, it's 14 versus 17 in favor of Protoss. But that said, in my experience playing on the map, it's not too bad. Hold on one sec, I think we're having technical difficulties. Apparently I'm holding my mic a little bit too close to my mouth because I'm overly excited about the match at hand. Either way, I'll just continue talking about the map Colloseum at this point in time. What's a little bit annoying about Colloseum is that the Protoss player can take his expansion so early, and then he has that third gas right outside that's also extremely easily defendable. So a lot of times the Zerg player needs to manage some sort of big macro style game because the Protoss has such an easy time getting 3 gas. That said, I haven't noticed it being too problematic for Zerg to do exactly what he needs to do. Zerg also has a lot of options as the game progresses because it becomes increasingly difficult for the Protoss to get 4th, 5th, and 6th gases. I mean, take another main, but Zerg players who are really aggressive and take that, initiative in the early and mid game can really get enough map control that Protoss has a lot of troubles later on. That said, F91's style does tend to be very aggressive, so I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of drops, maybe some early harassment. I haven't gotten a good chance of seeing his sort of late game management style play, but that said, it still should be like a really interesting game for F91 to play on this sort of map. NonY, on the other hand, I think this map exactly plays to his strengths. It allows him to turtle really easily early on with that nice tight choke, and he can take his natural expansion, which again is very easily defendable on that high ground. And then this will allow him, again, since he has his third gas, right outside his base, he can go into that macro mode so much, and then we'll get to see NonY's really supremely strong fundamentals. Okay, so with that in mind, it is now ready to begin Game 1 of F91 vs. NonY on Colloseum. Alright, so Game 1 begins. We have F91 spawning at the bottom right position. We have NonY spawning at the bottom left. Some friendly banter going on between the two opponents. And immediately we see F91 scouting with his overlord in the wrong direction. That's not too big a deal, though. That said, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the openings I like for Zerg. For the most part, even though going 12 hatch, 11 pool is totally fine on this map, a lot of earlier pool openings can be really beneficial because even though most Protoss players really like doing early expand, like maybe 95%, the starting positions are close enough that 2-gate does have a lot of potential. In fact, a lot of Zerg players even like to send their scouting overlord directly through the middle of the map so they can spot any sort of proxies in the center. Either way, I find early pool openings to be particularly nice on this map because you can force an early expanding Protoss to make a few too many cannons early on. And again, since Zerg needs to get that sort of big army, that big management going on in the later stages of the game, it's always nice to put the Protoss on the defensive early on. So we do see a 9 pool going down for F91. And right now, NonY has built a pylon at his entrance. Based upon the positioning, he could be either going 2-gate or for Forge first. We're going to see, and he is going for a Forge first, the absolute standard for this map. And NonY fortunately ends up scouting F91 right off the bat. So this should be a really nice situation for NonY already. We see a little friendly hello from our Chinese superstar F91. We already see that F91 has done the extractor trick. So that way, he's not going to be going for any sort of fast ling speed right now, which I actually really like. I don't think he should be going ling speed. That choke is just so small that it's way too hard to force any sort of Zerglings in there early, doing that sort of luxury style that's become more popular since Luxury versus Jangbi finals. And the pool does finish, and we have 6 Zerglings en route. Still no drone being sent to an expansion right now for F91. It looks like his first one's getting ready to right now. And we do see some cannons going down for NonY. We see 2 cannons being built. I actually question whether or not he's going to have room to build a gateway up there. I mean, ideally you want to build a gateway at your choke so you can kind of help wall off, but it looks like NonY may have done it a little tightly. Hopefully I'm wrong, because I love watching NonY get to play his nice late game style. And we see those Zerglings definitely heading away towards NonY. NonY actually feeling a little more comfortable than I would have imagined. A lot of players panic and build a gateway in addition to those 2 cannons to help wall off. But we see NonY keeping his probe alive in F91's base, keeping a really solid count on those Zerglings, and it's clear that he finds 2 cannons to be sufficient. And he, as a result, he's able to start his Nexus a little bit early, and he has the probe at the front ready to throw down that Nexus. And oh my god, if we look at the 3rd gas, NonY builds a pylon there. That has to be some of the most annoying stuff to deal with in this matchup. F91 responding as though nothing happened, just building the gas in his main. So that way he can get his layer really quickly. This is just a sort of standard type of play we see in Zerg vs Protoss against early expanding. And as it turns out, I was wrong, and NonY is able to build that gateway at the front of his base and is starting a gas geyser right now. NonY does end up canceling the pylon at the natural expansion. So F91's getting to sort of continue with his normal game plan. Looks like F91's expansion is just about ready to finish up, and we see that gas geyser finishing. Lately, what's been happening a lot in these early expand Zerg vs Protoss games is the Protoss like to get Corsairs first, and the Zergs generally respond by getting a Spire extremely quickly. But rather than getting a lot of Mutalisks, they just get, 6 to 8 Scourge, and then they add on 2 additional hatcheries very, very quickly. At this point, the Zerg player can switch immediately to Spire, or excuse me, immediately to Hydralisks and start getting map control that way. And I actually think, even though that seems to be standard across a wide range of maps, I think that in particular on this map, that proves to be very strong, because Zerg does need map control to get a lot of those expansions later on. We see the Cybernetics core and the 2nd gas going down for NonY. Totally standard, he's going to need a lot of gas later on, so we can make all those transitions between Corsairs and High Templar and these sorts of things. Nothing but drones coming out for F91 right now. Looks like he was a little slow on his 2nd Overlord. Ideally, he should be making his 3rd Overlord right now, but we don't see that one going down yet. Again, for any of you players trying to improve, never be held back by your food count. And we do see NonY getting that Stargate in his main, just the total standard for Protoss players. NonY building some Zealots at his front for more defense. And right now, nothing too out of the ordinary. Right now, again, this is always a good sign to look for. We see that the Zerg player hasn't taken a 2nd gas anywhere. This is always a sign that he's going to be going for this sort of mass Hydra in a little bit. If he's going for Mutalisks, generally players will opt to get extra gases early as Zerg so they can have a bigger Mutalisk army. And we see the Citadel going down for NonY. Now I'm interested to see if NonY's going to be getting a big Corsair army, or if he's going to be switching to, if he's going to be getting a big Corsair army so we can go Corsair Reaver, that sort of thing, or if he's going to be switching to ground a little more quickly. We do see that +1 upgrade going down for NonY right now, which is always a huge benefit to have. And now that the Citadel's finished, I'm really interested to see if he's going to go straight for Templar, or if he's going to be getting a Zealot leg speed. And he does indeed go straight for the Templar Archives. And note that there is not another Stargate coming out right now. He is just going straight into a macro ground army style. And we do see Zealot leg being upgraded now for NonY. NonY's just poking around here with his Corsair. He's going to go straight into the heart of Zerg's main just to make sure that there's nothing crazy going on, that he is in fact getting that Spire. And as we said earlier, we are seeing F91 get these 2 hatcheries and this Hydralisk den to do that standard sort of mass Hydralisk play. Ooh, and 2 more gateways going down for NonY. It looks like Zealot leg speed is on the way, so hopefully NonY will do some sort of big massive attack that will lead us to a dramatic, tense game right off the bat. Right now, just 1 kill on the Corsair for NonY, but any Overlord kill counts hugely in this matchup. So right now, great position for NonY. He knows exactly what's going on. The Scourge do get to pop out for F91. NonY's pretty comfortable with that. Notice he's sending his Corsair all around the map, so that way he can keep it alive as long as possible to continue to check for expansions and to poke around. Ooh, 2 more gateways going down for NonY right now. This is what's so interesting about the evolution of this matchup, is lurkers have become less and less popular. Oh, but hold that thought. Oh my goodness, a Templar right outside the front of NonY's base accidentally spawned on the wrong side of the gateway and ended up wandering out to his death. It's always little unfortunate things like that can help put you back tremendously, because when you want to go in for like a nice big Zealot Archon attack, which seems to be NonY's plan, losing one Templar like that early can really set things back. We see one Archon morphing in NonY's main. We see a whole bunch of Zealots and High Templar being produced right now. But now, back to that thing that I wanted to say, but was rudely interrupted by a Templar who was wandering out on his own. Lurkers are, since lurkers have become less and less used early on, a lot of Protoss players have got to delay that robotics facility way long, and they can get a big army and be really aggressive way faster. And that's clearly what NonY's doing right now, so it's always really fun and interesting to see. Now here's something cute. We see Mutalisks being made by F91. This is sort of a little trick a lot of Zerg players have been doing, is they start doing this mass Hydra opening, so that way the Zerg or the Protoss player doesn't build too many cannons in his main, and then they get a bunch of Mutalisks and run in. And right now, oh my god, look at this! F91 is going to counterattack NonY's main, and NonY's going straight for F91. Probes dropping left and right as a natural expansion of NonY. Oh my god, those Mutalisks have absolutely nothing in their way. There's an Archon here, but they just easily back off. But if we go to F91's main, we see about 12 +1 Zealots trying to push into F91's main. F91 is trying to build sunken colonies as much as possible, and is even running his Mutalisks back home, so this might be NonY's key to continuing to keep his expansions up and running. We see sunken colonies going down, and F91's panicking and making a ton of Zerglings right now. We see the Mutalisks now coming back, and NonY's trying to re-get his footing. He's morphing a cannon at his expansion, and we see just 2 Dragoons coming out and more on the way. Although the Zealots did die in F91's main, oh whoops, an Archon comes to the party a little bit late, and there's going to be absolutely nothing that Archon can do, and NonY ends up losing an Archon for nothing. That's always really unfortunate when your opponent is up against a wall like that, when he's pushed him back with a ton of Zealots, and then you lose one of those key Archons, which is going to be like the huge pushing force in the next big attack. So now that F91 has held that off, he's going back to his signature aggressive style. And again, a Templar at the front of NonY's base ends up wandering right out on his own. Ends up picking that off. Ooh, NonY did a good job of canceling that cannon before it came. But oh man, look at this, F91 just running in with Lings and Mutas. All those Zerglings he made to try to help that counterattack are now just wandering right into NonY's main. This Archon is going to be a huge help though. Archon gets 6 kills on the Zerglings, and the Dragoons help to push the this force back out. Not sure how good of a decision that was by F91, but he did have that nice aggressive unit composition, the Mutalisks and the Zerglings. He was able to draw a lot of NonY's units up onto his high ground expansion, so that way he could come in the front with Lings and Mutas and maybe hit it a better attack. So I'm still not sure if that attack was good or bad for F91, but still, it did kind of put NonY in an increasingly tense situation. So only just now do we see that observatory going down for NonY, and these Mutalisks of F91 continuing to harass, taking out tons of probes. It looks like there's only, looks like there's only 8 or 9 probes mining at NonY's expansion. NonY only just now beginning to research Storm, and we see a fairly large Hydralisk army being made by F91. Again, this is just a standard play by Zerg. I just love this so much, how much map control Zergs can get if they just mass up Hydras like this. And we see all the Hydras just lining up to walk right into NonY's main. It looks like F91 clearly knew that Storm was late. Storm is only halfway done, and there's tons of Hydralisks coming in right now. I'm not sure if NonY's going to be able to defend this. I mean, he has his force that's about to fall down, and it looks like he's going to be killed before he gets +2 attack. We see some Dragoons on the high ground trying to shoot down at those Hydralisks, but there's just so many of them and no Storm. Oh god, I have no idea how long it is till the Storm gets done, but those Mutalisks are sniping the Templars that are remaining there. Still a ton of Hydralisks just killing off this front gateway, and now with that gateway down, the Hydralisks are free to wander right into NonY's main. This aggressive play by F91 is just beating NonY into the ground. NonY trying to position his units correctly, but there's just swarms of Hydralisks coming in. These Mutalisks are doing a beautiful job of sniping Templars all over the place. This is going to prove to be a really hard hold for NonY. And right now, NonY GG's, and we are done with Game 1. So already we've seen F91 turn expectations. I mean, on this map that generally people feel is favoring Protoss a little bit, F91 just came out with this beautiful aggressive play to totally sort of screw with NonY early on and then just shove right into his main. I mean, there was virtually no time in between that first Mutalisk attack and then when all the Hydralisks came in the front. And notice how beautifully F91 crafted that. A lot of players like to get maybe 12 to 20 Hydralisks first and then get those Mutalisks. F91, on the other hand, just got some Scourge, stayed for just a few seconds, and then got the Mutalisks, and that clearly threw off NonY's timing. I mean, even though NonY did that counterattack with his Zealots to try to push into his main, still, F91 made those Zerglings and used them in a counterattack to continue to delay that Psionic Storm, which was the whole key to this next huge attack that F91 was able to pull off. NonY, although he played really standard, it's very clear that F91 is really strong at these mind games. And unfortunately for him, this next map is going to be on Andromeda. Now, Andromeda is a Zerg-favored map. It's had a significantly more games played on it than Colloseum. It's 44 games in favor of Zerg versus 31 games in favor of the Protoss player. And the reason it's so hard for Protoss players is that even though the Protoss has a gas expansion as a natural as well as a mineral expansion, the Zerg players have a much easier time taking and defending other mains. On the other hand, Protoss don't really have a lot of good options for their third gas expansion. That's why we see a lot of Protoss players like to open up with this sort of Corsair into Reaver opening so they can take the islands really quickly. But one person I think does an excellent job of Protoss for Zerg on this map is Free, the pro gamer on Woongjin Stars. Free does this beautiful job of pushing out with a massive army and taking the side expansion followed by the center expansion, which I think is a genius choice on this map for Protoss players. I think that center expansion, if you have enough map control, that's actually the safest expansion on the map for Protoss. And with that double gas, you can get such an unbelievable amount of Archons that can always tip the favor in the Protoss direction. So with that in mind, we have Game 2 starting right now of F91 versus Liquid NonY.